Hi everyone, welcome once again. We are here again as promised, and Chizoba Christian is very much around.
Hello everyone.
Okay, we are here to continue with this interesting, awesome, powerful book, Imagination is Everything, written by my favorite author, Reverend Chris Christian. We have already done segments 1 and 2.
Yes.
This is the third segment. So we're going to, she is going to review chapters 5 and 6. Yes. So she's here to review chapters 5 and 6. Get your Bible and paper ready because she's still going to unleash so many mysteries from this book. This book is loaded. So stay tuned as she unleash what she has for us.
Yes. Okay, so let's quickly get into it.
Yes.
Chapter 5 says, imagination is the source of knowledge.
The source of knowledge.
Don't get confused. Before I said in chapter 3, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely chapter 3. Chapter 3 is imagination is more important than knowledge. But this is saying imagination is the source of knowledge. So they're different information.
Yes.
They both carry different information. So quickly, chapter 5, imagination is the source of knowledge. Now, man's ability to articulate whatever God is showing to him gives him the opportunity to become a source of knowledge. Imagination is the scroll where God hides mysteries. God hides mysteries in the imaginations of men, but it is only men with unrestrained imagination that can have access to the mysteries of God. And it is the revelation it is the mystery, secrets in the imaginations of men that determines the quality and value of their lives. That is why imagination is powerful. I mean, it's everything, it's the foundation of everything. Both the life and destiny of God are preserved, they are encapsulated and preserved in his imagination. And God's imagination is infinite. God is omnipotent because his imagination is infinite. He is all-knowing because his imagination is infinite. Nothing can be hidden from him because of his unrestrained imagination. Now, unrestrained imagination is a definite imagination. Is a definite thought. So knowledge is created from unrestrained imagination. This is why revelation is controlled by imagination. It's created and controlled from imagination. So it is only those who have the ability to tame their mental sight, that can have unrestrained imagination. And such people would not be spiritually and mentally blind. But those men will be unable or will lack the ability to access the secret of God when their imaginations are not preserved. And mind you, it is restrained, having that unrestrained imagination from focus that preserves men's imagination to articulate what God is revealing. Although the Babylonian had this, they had that focus, that strong mental prowess, but God still separated them. He still scattered them because they invaded the unrestrained imaginative sphere of God without acknowledging him. It is only from the unrestrained imaginative sphere of God that one can build a city and tower whose top will get to heaven. It is infinite intelligence that enables people to articulate and process mysteries. So the unequaled access Jesus had to the revelations of Christ emanated from his unrestrained imagination. The unrestrained imagination of Jesus made it impossible for him to doubt God. Jesus was able to believe in all that God was showing to him because of his unrestrained imagination. But those who don't have unrestrained imaginations, or whose imaginations are restrained, find it difficult to believe in what God is revealing to them. God hides truths in the imaginations of men. In fact, God hides important things in the souls of men. So the first place to look is within. And that's what Jesus did. And that's why he united completely. He became completely God and completely man. So we are as powerful as our imaginations. Furthermore, the destiny of every spirit is with its intrinsic weight, nature, and size. So thereby, you can interpret the destiny of a spirit from its nature, its intrinsic weight and size. But for God, God is infinite. He's the Alpha and Omega, who knows the end from the beginning.
Yeah.
God is immortal because his spirit is like a wool. The spirit of the Ancient of Days is like a wool, and that means he has a hoary nature. And his hoary nature is why his imagination is unrestrained. However, sometimes God can deny himself in his imagination. When God denies himself in his imagination, he becomes non-existent.
Becomes non-existent.
Yes. And when God becomes non-existent, men lack the ability or the power to make contact with him. This is why the reason we have so many people who don't believe in God is because God can deny himself in his imagination. When that happens, men will not be able to make contact with him. So the ignorance that inspires some enlightened folks to sometimes deny the existence of God is the same that inspires some religious folks to misinterpret God. And misinterpreting God does not bother him. It only increases the value of his complications.
Yes.
Because his secrets are his divine economy. It's everything. That's his fortress. So God only shares it with worthy lives. First, chosen lives who are made worthy through the price they have paid. Man has to be chosen first before they are made worthy. Then, through sharing of his secret, God shares his power. This is why it doesn't bother him when people misinterpret. And it will not end.
It will not end.
The argument will not end. This explains why men know in parts. Men know in parts because of the limited imagination. And the imaginations of men can be measured in their knowledge. So men know in parts because God believes man wants to overthrow him each time they start desiring to seek something they're not meant to know.
They're not meant to know.
Yeah.
And then they want to overthrow you.
Yes. So you should only focus on the learning of your destiny.
Yeah.
Because the revelations of God is everything to him. The everlasting power of God are encapsulated in his secrets. Nothing is as important to God as his revelations, which is why men pay so much, emphasis on so much. Men pay so much to have access to it.
To God's revelation.
Yes. Revelations, mysteries of God determines the value of his imagination. And revelations, mysteries of God determine the value of his imagination. And it's the value of a particular revelation that determines the price men pay to access it. Even Jesus, the Son of God, had to pay to open the seal book. In Revelation chapter 5, he lost his life to it. That's how important revelation is to God. God hides in his mysteries in himself. When Jesus was on earth, God hid Christ in him. It is wrong to trust any spirit that cannot hide in itself. That is, any spirit that has not taken an ideological form in a man, that is hiding himself in a man.
Yeah.
So as to introduce itself to the people, that is, interpret his imagination into an ideology to raise a people. Such a spirit cannot raise a people, cannot have a people, should not be trusted. And worshipping such a spirit is idolatry. That is why the imagination of God must be condensed into an ideology, into a thought, for God to identify with men and for God to raise a people.
Yeah.
So mysteries and revelations are encapsulated and hidden, preserved in the Holy Spirit of God. It is any revelation or mystery that is hidden in the Holy Spirit of God cannot be accessed by the devil. It was hiding himself in Christ that made Jesus invisible and invincible. Thereby, he could not stay in the grave. The unrestrained imagination of Christ made it impossible for Jesus to remain in the grave. That's why he accomplished self-resurrection. All who have unrestrained imagination cannot be killed. Chapter 6 says, imagination reveals both the spiritual and mental values of men. Imagination reveals both the spiritual and mental values of men. Now, God measures both the spiritual and mental values of men from the imagination. We as powerful as our imagination. So it's imagination that introduces your value to God. Although God scattered the Babylonians, but he still took Abraham from their midst and started a new Hebrew family, a progressive journey with the Babylonian Abraham, because of their imaginative prowess. And the journey of God with Abraham was exponentially successful because he had an unrestrained imagination. God places values God places value on the imaginations of men, on men who have unrestrained imagination. And there's no limit to what God can accomplish through such men with unrestrained imagination. But the values of men depreciate terribly when they allow their imagination to be held by the spirit of witchcraft. Now, people think this is usually maybe what they see in movies, an external attack. Not really, but still not far-fetched. It is an external influence we willingly allow, well, sometimes not willingly, even unconsciously, allow to infiltrate and leave a negative painting in our imagination. For instance, there are believers who participate in ungodly festivities, gatherings, thinking it's not a big deal. These things are bringing you into a baptism, to a cloud, and it will not leave you the same. All clouds must leave a baptism. The Bible says that our fathers were under the same cloud, under Moses. In fact, the Bible called that cloud Moses. So no baptism will leave you the same. Some believers even seek mediums, other mediums, and they see nothing wrong with it. Just little desperation that should make demand on themselves, on paying, they quickly resort to other mediums. It's prostituting with different spirits. These things defile, it corrupts people's imagination. It doesn't leave you the same. Remember, it was after man fell that he took a fallen nature and then gave birth to a murderer from that fallen nature. This is why you should be mindful. When Satan through corruption, corrupts the flow of issues of life, of men's life. And that is where people draw everything from inspiration, joy, from that well. If a container is perforated, and you keep pouring water in it, it will not fill up. It will not remain full. So if you keep depleting yourself, how can you draw from the well of salvation? Leviticus chapter 19 verse 31 advises, God was warning that we should not turn to those who have familiar spirits or to wizards to be defiled by them. Emphasis, defiled by them. To you, you are seeking answers, but they are defiling you. That cloud is defiling you. Then he said, keep yourself, for he is the Lord our God. The next chapter of the same book, Leviticus chapter 20 now, verses 6 and 7 this time, warns, he said, any soul that turns to as such as have familiar spirits or after wizards, so go whoring after them. That God, even God, and I quote, even I will set my face against such a soul, and will cut him off from among his people. Sanctify yourself, therefore, and be holy, and keep yourself holy, for I am the Lord your God. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verses, 2 Timothy chapter 4 verses 3 and 4. Apostle Paul there had already prepared us for a time like this. This is why we should be mindful of things we listen to, watch, places we go to. It says it for a time will come, such as now, when people will no longer enjoy sound doctrine, sound principles of God. But according to their own lustful desires, according to their desires, they will heap to themselves teachers who tell them what they want to hear. Having itching ears, they will be turned away from fables. Having itching ears, they will be turned away from the truth and turn to fables. This is why Jesus warned that we should be mindful of what we pay attention to. Yes, in Mark chapter 4 verse 24. He said there, take heed of what you hear. For with the measure you meet, it will be measured to you. And unto you who hear, more shall be given unto. More shall be given to you. You might not understand it, but let me quote a simpler translation for clarity. A simpler translation says, pay attention to what you, or be mindful of what you pay attention to. For by your own standard of measurement, that is, to the extent that you study spiritual truths and apply godly wisdom, it will be measured to you. And more will be given to you. A greater ability will be given to you besides. More will be given to you. That's amplified version. Lastly, 1 John chapter 3 verses 21 and 22. 1 John chapter 3 verses 21 and 22 said, beloved, if our spirit does not convict us of all these sins What are the sins? These things I mentioned: prostituting with spirit, defiling yourself. If our soul does not convince us of this, then we can confidently stand before God, boldly stand before God with all assurance and ask, and then we will receive what we ask, because we diligently and carefully keep His commandment and do things that are pleasing in His sight. You might think this thing can be mechanized. That time that sudden fear is taking over you when you want to pray is a sign that there's something you should pay attention to. A cloud, a baptism. So miracles start in the lives of men when they willingly shield themselves from corruption, from the spells of darkness. It is only sound mind that can enjoy unrestrained imagination. In fact, sound mind inspires unrestrained imagination. And sound mind is one of the greatest gifts of God to man. Jesus was born with Christ so that Christ would keep his mind sound.
Sound, yeah.
Men of sound mind don't fellowship with negative thoughts. That's why you should work hard. It is an effort. You make effort to keep your mind sound. Because corruption depletes, destroys man's, in fact, everything about man. People with corrupt imagination can't fellowship with God. They can't relate with God. Corruption limits man, just like what virus does to a computer. This is why you have to keep your imagination sound. Those whose thoughts are corrupt cannot succeed in anything. That's how serious this thing is.
Very serious.
Yes. Corruption does not allow people, it restrains people's imagination. It does not allow men to have sound imagination. The imagination of man is the hiding place of his life. This is why you should protect your imagination from invasion. Jesus Christ protected and preserved the imagination of Jesus, which is why Jesus accomplished the extraordinary. God does not separate himself from sound imagination. And, men of sound imagination will always have opportunity to accomplish great things, great feats, yes. But hopelessness, depression, confusion take over the lives of men when their imaginations are continuously invaded, when their imaginations are continuously attacked by darkness. Negatively, exactly. This is why you should be conscious of the things you pay attention to, places you go to, what you watch, what you listen to. It is that sensitive. Protect your sense organs, because these things are windows, are gates into your soul. They leave painted. They don't leave you the same. Don't be casual about it. No fellowship leaves you the same. Every fellowship brings a baptism. It is not possible for a mind to remain the same, for one to remain the same when his imagination is negatively impacted. And it's not possible for people to remain positive when they are continuously attacked with the negative. That is why it is serious. You should protect yourself. Just as God does not separate from sound imagination, Satan does not also separate from people who have fallen imagination. So part of the battles you're fighting is part of that imperfection of, an imagination that is not, an imagination that is restrained. Let me use that word. Throughout the life and practical messianic ministry of Jesus, he was not subjected to any form of confusion because his imagination was preserved, controlled by the visionary Christ. All whose imagination attained will not be available for, corruption, but corruption limits and corrupts the imaginations of men. Jesus knew he had to live for Christ. So his unrestrained imagination emanated from the fact that he lived for Christ. Christ, on the other hand, could not separate himself from Jesus after taking his life. Christ took the life of Jesus and preserved it, thereby blessing him with an unrestrained imagination. Losing his life to Christ meant thinking and living for God. That's giving everything to God. The imagination of every man is moderated by his higher self, just like Christ moderated that of Jesus. Now, the higher self of every man imparts him, and discovering our higher self unites us with God. We are as powerful as our imagination. What God accomplishes on earth is determined by the strength of man's imagination. This is why there's so much to discover about your imagination. Because you will not relate intelligently with life if you don't. You will not be able to interpret your life if you can't interpret or understand the strength of your imagination. You will not be able to relate intelligently with life if you lack the strength to interpret your imagination, or if you lack the ability to interpret the strength of your imagination, to know the strength of your imagination. But those who relate properly with their imaginations don't lose their lives.
We don't lose their lives.
Yes. God depends on our imagination to rule our world, but only those with sound imagination can represent God. People with corrupt imagination cannot represent God. Yes. God depends on our mental states to rule our world. This is why you should mind it. You should be mindful of it. Satan, on the other hand, because you might think it's too much work, Satan, on the other hand, depends on it. Depends on our mental state, or wants to depend on our mental state to infiltrate our world. Because your mind will not be left virgin, so don't even think about it. If you don't intentionally cultivate it, it will go follow. Satan will leverage on it. God created everything, called everything into existence from the fountain of his imagination. So the creative power of God is in his imagination. And the good news is the image and likeness of God in us, the image and likeness of God in us empowers us, gives us the ability to share in that creative power of God. Yes, enables us to function with unrestrained imagination. But only those whose imagination are sound can enjoy this. This is why you should protect your imagination. The way God is in heaven is how man is meant to be on earth. Men of sound imagination. That completes it for this segment. Until I see you again in the next. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Imagination is everything. This book is really wonderful.
Yes.
And imagination is indeed everything.
Yes.
Because imagination is us.
Yes.
Yeah, imagination is
yes.
And we need to seek towards achieving sound imagination. Because when you have sound imagination, you can do wonders for God.
Yes.
And that's when God will be able to use us to achieve mighty feats on earth. Don't allow your imagination to be corrupted by witchcraft.
Yes.
Don't dare, because you will regret it. So much has been said, and we are going to come back again shortly for the next segment. And Chizoba Christian is also going to be here to continue from where she stopped.
Yes.
So tune in our next edition.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank